I'm not going to lie to you guys. I put myself into poverty. There it is. I said it. I'm speaking my truth. I have noticed that a lot of women that are single moms want to let everyone know that they made it and that their kid was not affected too much by them being a single parent. Meaning they were able to, still get them into good schools or still maintain a decent lifestyle without welfare, without food stamps, without housing, anything like that. They were able to navigate their 18 years with their child without any of those assistance. I'm going to tell you guys, I didn't. I put myself into poverty. The way it happened is that I got pregnant. That's number one. I got pregnant by somebody that I was with for many, many years. Probably a relationship that I knew. No, it was a relationship that I knew I was done with after high school, and it wasn't going to prosper into the rest of my life. Unfortunately for me, I did not take all of the necessary precautions to make sure that I was not put in a position that I did not want to be in. Lesson learned. But I have to say that I did not grow up poor, and I did not grow up in the hood nor the projects. My parents gave me a middle class, very, very nice lifestyle, traveling, seeing the world, seeing a lot of different things. They exposed me to a lot of different things. I lived a life that a lot of Black people did not live at that point in time. We were one of the first people in our neighborhood that were Black. Well, my parents were. I was the last child, so it was a little bit later on in my life that I was obviously there in the family. But I do know that my parents worked really hard. My dad did. My mom did. And they made sure that, they gave us an upbringing that was pretty different from the one that they were able to have. When I got to be grown, because I did not have my daughter as a teen. I did not become a teen mom. I was in my young 20s when I had her. And by that time, I did not go straight to college. I went into the workforce, and that's what I thought I wanted to do. I went ahead and navigated around college and began working my way up. And the same way everyone else does, small jobs leading to the next job, leading to the next job. By the time I was about 21 years old, I moved out of my parents' house when I was probably about 19. By the time I was 21, I had my own place for a couple of years. I had a car that I had since I was 19 with my name on it. Insurance is paid. I had credit cards. I had a high credit score. I paid my bills. I went to work. I lived a life. I partied. I had a really good time. And then I got pregnant. Once I got pregnant, things changed. The reason why I'm telling you that I put myself into poverty is not just the generic, all single moms, put themselves into poverty, because obviously if you have a child and you cannot pay, all of these things up front, you don't have that money initially, it goes behind and behind and behind. You're just getting further and further behind the more and more that your kid needs, and you're trying to provide things that you do not already have access to. Those things put me in poverty. But instead of me going back to my parents and saying, hey, here's this baby that I just had, take care of us and help me, just take care of me. And I'll let you figure out until I figure out how I'm going to take care of this kid. No, I knew and I accepted responsibility for my actions. And I thought long and hard about having my child. And it wasn't because I was thinking, I don't want this kid, screw this, I'm trying to live life. It was because I really understood that me having a child was not going to just change my life, it was this child's life that I was going to be responsible for. And what I realized is that I did not have the necessary funds to actually be able to take care of a kid. For me, I decided that I was going to have my child, which meant I also decided anything that came with it was on me. My parents didn't ask for a child when I was 20 something, in my low 20s. They didn't ask. They didn't come to me and say, "Hey, you want to have a baby that will help take care of for 18 years?" They didn't ask me that. I had that. I decided that for my own life, and I gave birth to my own child, which I was responsible for. And I was not going to put that burden on my parents. I was already out on my own. I already had my own car, my own job, my own, everything. But if you've had a baby, then you understand that things change. Life is not as easy after a baby as it was before a baby. So I went through a lot of changes. I was not able to pay and handle the bills and things that I had from previously before getting pregnant. My whole life changed. I had to learn about WIC and welfare and food stamps. I mean, these were things that honestly in my life, and it's funny because while I'm sitting here thinking about this, all I can think about is Jennifer on Basketball Wives and the whole "you don't know what a food stamp is" battle. If you guys know the show and you were watching way back when it first came on, then you understand what I'm talking about with Jennifer. She grew up pretty well off. She didn't know what a food stamp was. She was a black girl. She didn't know what food stamps were, and she got ripped for it. But I was around the same way. And it was because my parents nurtured me and sheltered me, maybe a little bit to my detriment, but everything that they were doing was to help me. They saw it as, they did not do it to hinder my growth or anything of that nature. They did it so I would not be exposed to all the negatives that the world has to offer at such young ages. That kind of hindered me a little bit because I was not prepared for who people actually were in the real world. And it took me a little bit of time to catch up to that. But when I had my child, as I was going through the pregnancy process, I learned a lot about the social programs that I didn't even know existed. I had no idea that, I definitely knew people were poor and people were not as well off as me, but I had no real knowledge of the types of programs, social service. I had never been in a building. I had never done any of that. But I put myself there because of my choices. When my daughter was 1.5 years old, I transitioned. I moved to a different state. I did need a little bit more help than I, was able to provide myself yet again. And I did have a good support system, which was a benefit to me. A lot of girls do not have that, and it is so important to have a support system. Even if, you do like I did and still live the subsidized life and get food stamps or whatever you need to do for a time, you still need a cushion. You still need people that have your back and that baby's back and won't let you guys fall through the cracks. Whether it, no matter what it is, you need that. When I signed up for healthcare and WIC, and I'm taking those little coupons to the store, and I'm embarrassed, and I'm just like, what? Oh my gosh, what is this life? Like, I have no idea what it is and why I'm here. When I decided to apply for subsidized housing, I knew that I could no longer pay by myself the close to $1,000 that I was paying by myself. I always lived alone. So I never had a roommate situation. I was chucking that money out on my own. So being that it was myself and my daughter, I needed a place to live. I could go back to my parents' house, but I had decided to have a family. Maybe the family did not include a man that was also there helping me, but when you have a child and you have, especially if you have 2, 3, 4, 5, you have a family. But even if it's just the two of you, you are now a family unit. That child needs you to be the family unit, mom, dad, and child, that you would have been if you had a husband. You still have to carry that on by yourself. And I decided that I was going to do that. I mean, whether he was there, whether he was not there, depending, no matter what kind of help he ended up giving me, I was going to make sure that my child had an upbringing that was what I had. My parents had given me the world. And who am I to take my child and put her back in poverty? And that's exactly what I did. But I came up with a plan. I came up with a plan quick, fast, and in a hurry. And when I applied for subsidized housing and went in to sit down for my interview, the lady sat behind the desk and told me, you can live here for the rest of your life. Just get comfortable. Every year we'll send it out. You say you want to stay here, abide by the rules and regulations, and you can stay here rent-free for the rest of your life. And I looked at her and I said, I'll be out of here in 2 years. She was astonished. She was taken aback, and she was like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? Why would you do that? You know what I mean? Like, you have right here, right now, you have subsidized housing where we will take care of your housing bill for your child's entire life, for your entire life, or, for the 18 years of your child's life. And you can just sit back and relax. No, that's not good enough for my kid. That is not good enough for my kid. But guess what? I needed a place to live, and I wanted my kid to have her bedroom, and I wanted to have us a household for our family. And at that point in time, I had to give up the places that I had lived in previously to her being born. So I took it. After that point, I lived a life like I had never, ever experienced. I met women in situations that I never knew existed. I lived in poverty, and it was extremely hard. It was extremely depressing, and it was extremely, extremely easy to get comfortable. But I refused to get comfortable with that life. I came up with a plan. I decided, you know what? How am I going to get me and my kid out of this situation? Not just the housing. I'm talking about off food stamps, off, healthcare, needing healthcare from a government. All of those things. I wanted out. The first time I ever walked into a social services and was completely humiliated by the staff that I thought was there to help me, I said, this is not the life for any woman for any length of time. But we all know we have to feed our kids, and you do what you got to do to feed your kids, and there's nothing wrong with that. But ladies, did you put yourself into poverty? And have you made steps to climb out?